This episode is super, super important. How to pick big problems. If you aren't solving big problems, you won't make big money. When you find a problem, that's where the money is. That's not a mindset, by the way, it's a skill set. Big, hairy, solvable. This is where most scaling problems and opportunities live. This is the exact moment where most people run, and thus you get to lean in. Important. This is the Big Deal podcast, and I'm Codie Sanchez. Welcome back. Today we're talking to you builders about how to make more money. The truth that we have today is if you aren't solving big problems, you won't make big money. And I wish I had heard this sooner, that if you want to make more, the easiest way is to find the hardest game and to play it. You know, the truth of the matter is in business, you're always going to have problems. If your business doesn't have problems, it's probably dead. So I want to teach you a framework I use that helps me find the right problems that will make you lots of money. And this is why what I'm talking to you about is so critical today. If your business picks the wrong problems to focus on, you will lose all your money and not make any more of it. If your team picks the wrong problems, you're dead. And if you as an employee pick the wrong problems, you'll never make more money. So this episode is super, super important. How to pick big problems. Oftentimes we run away from big problems, right? We want to beat our head against the wall when you come up to them. But I think this story started to reframe it totally for me. So a few months ago, Marc Andreessen was asked why Elon Musk is able to build rockets, electric cars, brain chips, tunnels so effectively. And whether you like his politics or not, the answer was so good. Marc said simply, what Elon does is he shows up every week at each one of his companies. He identifies the biggest problem that the company's having that week. He fixes it, then he finds a new problem, and he does that every week for 52 weeks in a row. It's a relentless problem loop. Simple in theory and brutal in practice. It requires proximity, so a willingness to actually live inside or right next to friction. And most people don't operate that way. Most companies definitely don't. Problems are treated like biohazards. Stay away. Okay, so rule number one, we are going to reframe. I no longer want to hear you say in your business problems. Instead, we're going to say, there's a growth opportunity. Here's the truth of the matter. When you find a problem, that's where the money is. The second you find a problem, you should be like, oh, wait a second. This was a bottleneck in the way of the flow of money funneling to me. It sounds woo-woo, except it's real. We're going to process them, redirect them, and then we're going to actually welcome them. This is different than what the rest of corporate America does because we've become professionals at problem avoidance. But at SpaceX, they do the opposite. They send a 400 square foot skyscraper into the sky, knowing full well it will probably explode spectacularly, publicly. But they want to know exactly what breaks, when, and why, because every failure will help incapacitate dozens of future problems. So Andreessen describes Musk's idea as something like this, like incredible devotion from a leader to fully, deeply understand what the company does, and being the lead problem solver in the organization. And that last part really matters, the lead problem solver, because it isn't really glamorous. I mean, if you understand this, you know the uncomfortable truths is that as a founder, you're going to do the thing that no one else wants to touch. That's it. But that's where all the leverage is. What you earn usually reflects what you solve. And that's why like prioritization, which sounds kind of fluffy, is actually super, super important. If you let low-level problems become what you do, you get low-level pay. You have to be able to outsource the low-level problems, otherwise you'll never be able to build rockets. Now, you don't need to like Elon to understand this, I don't think. You don't need to agree with him. You don't need to launch rockets either. In a $3 million HVAC business or a 20-year-old manufacturing brand, one constraint, one fixable pricing model, one key hire, one broken ops process can change the trajectory of the entire company. What you probably do need to do is move toward the problem that's going to move the needle. I want you to think about it like this. On the left-hand side of the graph, up and down, you have your earnings size, how much money you can make. On the right-hand side of the graph, you have the problem size. I want you to realize that they're directly correlated. The bigger the earnings potential, the bigger the problem. The smaller the earnings potential, the smaller the problem, and vice versa. So we are going to actually figure out how to prioritize problems using what I call the problem prioritization matrix. It's a mouthful, but this is what I use. So Brad Jacobs has built multiple billion-dollar companies in logistics and just about everywhere. He wrote a book called How to Make a Few $1 Billion, which I thought was cute. But what I love is he talks about this in a very specific Brad-only way. So Brad says, essentially, think of M&A, so mergers and acquisitions, something we talk a lot about, is having four quadrants. This is the same for any business and any problem. They're defined by size and risk. So first, you can see on the graph, if you go to YouTube, you have big, low risk deals are the ones everybody wants, right? You can make a lot of money, but not a lot of risk. But they don't actually exist. The second is small, low risk deals. They exist, but you can't make much money from them because of their size. Then you have small, hairy deals. That's the worst quadrant. That's like they're not going to make you much money and they have a ton of problems. The reward is super limited. The odds are stacked against you. So why bother? The bingo, what you are looking for in your business, is the big, hairy deal. If you can find a big, hairy deal with solvable problems, that's where the real money is. And Jacobs didn't win by being perfect. He won by getting really good at solving the right problems. So he's like, I'm not surprised when things don't go perfectly. That's kind of the nature of this thing we're doing. That's not a mindset, by the way. It's a skill set. Big, hairy, solvable. This is where most scaling problems and opportunities live. Now, you don't want it to be fatal, not unsolvable. We're not looking for like cancer solving, but you hit growth and suddenly your cash conversion cycle turns sour. Your ops leader is underwater. Your CRM looks like it was built by a bunch of rabid raccoons. You've got customer demand, but no clean way to deliver. Revenue's up, morale's down. Your systems scream at you every time you find 5 new clients. You guys, those aren't problems. That's not failure. That's actually your growth unlock. Every time you find one of those, you should be silently thanking yourself, because Jacobs would argue, and so would I, that this is the exact moment where most people run, and thus you get to lean in. So if you want to win, you have to rearrange your brain to lean into those big, hairy problems and figure out how to cut off the hair and de-risk, he would say. That's the job. Not avoiding the hard problems, but identifying them and selecting the right ones to solve. By the way, if you're building a business right now and you're stuck or you want to break out to the next level, maybe you're not where you want to be today. Believe me, I've been there many, many times. I want you to know I got you. We help thousands of business owners a year figure out how to scale to the next level. One of my favorite mentors said, every level you have, there's just a higher level and a higher devil. And so if you've been in business for a while and you're doing 6, 7, or 8 figures, there's probably one thing standing in the way of your next level. That's why we host growth and scale workshops 4 times a year throughout the year in Austin, in Miami, in San Diego, and you may be a fit to come to one of them. If it sounds interesting to you to get help on how to scale your business to the next level, you can reach out to my team at the link in the show notes. We believe in you builders, but we also believe that it's a lonely road and you can't do it by yourself. So I like to take every single problem that I have and put it in that quadrant. I need to hire a new administrative assistant to answer email. Well, it's kind of like a small problem with a small reward. Okay, that's fine. I could spend a small amount of time on it. I need to find an entire new exec team because my exec team isn't functioning right now. Well, that's actually a big, hairy problem. But if I figure it out, holy crap. I spent 6 months looking for the president of this company, Contrarian Thinking. I spent $80,000 on the search just for the recruiter to find him. And the reason I was willing to spend all that time and all that money is because I knew when I found him, even if I paid a lot to find him, and then I had to pay him a lot, that one person would unlock my entire business. So I like to do this to myself. I'm like, every time I get a problem, I'm like, self, remember, it's funny, like how people get upset about finding problems in their business. That's what business is. It's constantly finding and solving problems and learning to enjoy the process. If the issue is real but solvable, keep going. I think most business owners waste years trying to avoid these moments, and the best ones move towards them. I have our teams use this matrix all the time. Print this out, put it up on the wall, have them categorize their own problems and only solve the big ones. I constantly am asking my team, why are you in here? Steve Jobs was actually really famous for this. He was famous for holding a meeting. A bunch of people would be in there. And then he would look at somebody, and if they weren't adding value and it didn't seem like they were relevant to the meeting, he would say, what are you doing in this meeting? Which seems kind of rude. But actually, what was he doing? He was freeing them up to leave if it wasn't relevant to them. He was saying, this isn't your problem set. So for instance, here's how I did it this week. I literally this week was working on some funnels that we have for one of our businesses. So most businesses have some sort of funnel that leads to a product. You get your original lead and you move it through the process until they finally buy. Well, a lot of times if you're talking to executives, they name all these different reasons why stuff is going on. But I start with this multi-step process. First, name your potential problems. Okay, so we listed out every single problem that marketing had. Then we picked the biggest one to solve. How? We wrote down how much money we could drive from each one, and we wrote down how much cost we could have from each one, and we wrote down all the potential solutions. So this is called the RICE formula. So this model helps organizations make better data-driven decisions by scoring based on 4 key factors: reach, impact, confidence, and effort. But I changed mine to revenue. How much money will this problem that I solve make me? Impact. How much cost impact will we have for doing this? Like, how much will it cost me? Confidence. How much confidence do we have or you have in your estimates? Like percentage or decimal reflecting certainty. So like if you're 80% confident, that's 0.8. And then effort. How much total work, personal months, weeks, or hours will this initiative require? So let's use an example. So a RICE score. Let's say here that you have a revenue opportunity of $1 million. You put $1 million up front minus the cost, $500,000. You put that all in parentheses times 0.8. I am 80% confident in both of these numbers, the revenue I can drive plus the cost. Then I divide all of that by 4 because I think it'll take me 4 weeks to do. That gives me a score. Now, every single thing that I'm going to do, I score this way. Why? Because your ability to choose the right problems will make you more money. Now, some companies lay this out with reach as opposed to revenue, but I really care about cash flow, as you guys know. Here's the truth. If you don't know what to do next, it helps to have a buddy to figure out what to do next. And oftentimes I think that buddy can be an equation. You can have a process, and process limits anxiety. Follow the process and you know that you're going to hit this right step at some point if you don't get up. In business, one of the loneliest things you can be, I think, is an owner of a business. A lot of people think that it's hard to be an employee. Having been both, I would say an employee is a lot easier. And sometimes you make more money because you're not spending in order to eventually one day have the potential ability to make money. We know that it's hard to be an owner, but it gets a lot less hard if you have a process and you have a principled way to do just about everything you do. That's why I use the RICE score. If I go, okay, Cody, when a problem comes into my head, I'm not stressed about it because I know a problem is hiding opportunity. I almost visually think about a problem like a curtain, where if I understand the problem, I pull back the curtain and behind that curtain is money. Now I just need to figure out how much money is hiding behind the curtain. So I use the RICE score so that I can make that curtain transparent. I'm like, all right, there's this amount of revenue, the cost, here's my certainty, my fix. I think we should go after this problem. This will also really help you if you have other team members or employees on your team. Why? Because everybody wants a to-do list like this. They want 452 things that they can do to check things off their list to feel good. But what they actually need to do is solve one problem. And if you get that one thing out of your way, you probably have a different business in front of you entirely. All right, let me know if you liked this episode this week, you guys. And if you're struggling with your one thing in business, we are here to help you. This is my entire life mission, and it's that you never stand alone in your business and you get to follow proven data and systems in order for you to grow. So if you want to talk to our team about coming to one of our scaling and growth workshops, if you want to talk about different resources and communities we have for builders, then you can hit the link in the description. We are here to help you as Owner Nation. All right, see you next week. Hey, I have something special for you for being such a loyal listener because you're here with me all the time. I get asked by a bunch of you, how do I tell if I should buy a business or not? Should you buy a business or not? What price should you buy a business at? How do you structure your deal? I got you, fam. So I'm going to gift you our deal calculator. Every time I look at a deal, I grab the numbers, plug it in here, and see how much money I could make or lose if I did a good or bad deal. So this is my gift to you. And if you're serious about buying a business, we want to help you. You can talk to my team about if you're a fit for our business buying community or curriculum. No matter what, here's your free gift. And if you need a hand to hold, I got you too. Hey crew, this is so cool. The podcast is growing like crazy, and it's only actually because of one thing, you. I don't know if you know this, but the only way the Big Deal Pod grows is when you share it with somebody else. We don't do ads. We don't do pay for play. We don't go on other people's podcasts and talk about it. So if you think there was something helpful here, if we made you money, we made you think about your business or life differently, the most beautiful thing you can do for me is share it. And the most beautiful thing you can do for someone that you care about is to share it with them, help them grow alongside you. So please share the pod. That's how we grow. And also tag me on anything you share. I love resharing other builders across Instagram, Twitter, and all other platforms. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. You're super important to me.
I sat down with Mr. Beast's team and I said, why did you guys launch? This is a bad business to launch. Here's the cheat code. Now this is really, really important, and most people on the internet would think that this was a snooze, which is, I'm about to give a speech to a former presidential candidate, a ton of the biggest fitness influencers out there. It's private, nobody else allowed, except I'm gonna bring you guys in.
This is Codie Sanchez, everyone.
So what I'm going to go over today is something I really actually never talk about publicly, and that's this monetization of eyeballs idea. Typically, I talk about building businesses and getting ownership or skin in the game because I think that's really important for our country overall. I think you have a lot of people who want to build the house if they own part of the house. If they don't own part of the house, there's more of a likelihood to burn it down. The idea is we want owners across the board. What's cool about this room is everybody that's in here was selected by Claire, Eric, or I specifically because you guys are already owners. You already have the mantle of responsibility laid upon your shoulders, which I think is pretty incredible. And my idea for this thing today was to talk about what I've found over the last, let's call it 2.5 years of turning audience into a monetized business. You know, everybody will talk to you about how to grow your Instagram audience faster. And let me tell you how to go to 10,000 followers in 10 days or whatever. But if what we really believe, which is what I believe, that money is power, I want more power in the hands of people who want to build, who want to share. And I think creators are in a really interesting position because you guys share for a living. You've sort of normalized sharing the things that you've learned. This is kind of new in the world. When I started out in finance a fucking while ago, nobody shared the secrets. Like there weren't these things called masterminds. You didn't have talks like this. In finance, one of my favorite CEOs, but I hated this line, he said to me, Codie, we get rich quietly. And I was like, you know, I don't know. What if instead we all got rich together? Because I think there's a lot of money out there. If we can help people figure out how to get it themselves, then we don't have to do this distribution nonsense of the stuff that we've all earned. I started off at Goldman Sachs, kind of doing what every Latina mother wants her daughter to do, which is like work for the big guy, corporate suit. I was doing the Wall Street stock thing. Parents are super happy. We're making some pretty good quan. And now, you know, I make fucking TikToks on the interwebs. And so things have degraded pretty quickly. The reason why I did it and why I think all of you should be obsessed about this one thing, which is attention. We should be obsessed on it. I think there is a war for our attention. And when a vacuum exists, AKA the smart minds, the intelligent minds aren't out there talking, what exists instead? The fucking Kardashians, right? And all the attention goes to nonsense as opposed to things that could actually make humans better. And so the reason that I did this, you know, when I told my mom that I was going to start a little blog, you know, and that I was going to go online, she kind of lost her mind. She's like, what's wrong with you? You have like a PhD, you got an MBA, what are you doing on the internet? But what I realized really quickly is that audience is the new leverage. I stole part of this from Naval Ravikant, so I have to give him credit. But he has this thing that basically says, leverage is the key to wealth, which I think is true. No one man can go very far. It's the African proverb. If you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, you need to go together. And so there are 4 tiers of leverage that came over many, many decades. The first was labor, right? That was old school. Slaves back in the day, all the way to employees today. And the people who had the riches, let's say the pharaohs back in the day, were those who had the most manpower, labor. Then we had capital. Right? When did the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds become titans of industry? If you look at the correlation to date, it's actually when the Banking Act was established in the US. And so when money was available widely and you could get OPM, other people's money, is when these guys became really wealthy. Then what was the next realm of titans? It was when code became available. That's when we got the Bezos, the Jobs. That's because they got leverage in the form of code or an army of robots online, basically, right? And the new, most permissionless version of leverage is what I think all of you guys know, which is audience, eyeballs. This is probably the first time that we have had a form of leverage that you didn't have to have permission for. So even code, you had to have like a supercomputer back in the day or access to a Stanford lab like some of these guys did. Today, audience, you don't have to have permission. You can grow your audience on a bunch of varied platforms without a ton of capital and without somebody at a bank saying that you're allowed to get a loan.
Wow, so you can really give me a loan?
I sure can.
And so once I realized this, I was like, oh, no, I'm an idiot to not, yes, have those first 3 forms of leverage, but add the 4th on it. I'll ask this question to you guys. Have you ever had a job you hated? Okay, good. And why did you hate your job? What made you leave eventually? It's usually one word. It's your boss. Your boss sucked, right? The boss wasn't good.
That pretty much sums it up.
And so the problem is if we become owners of businesses, what do we become? The boss. So don't suck. Don't do what everybody else has done and create companies that are terrible for your employees and create attention that is Kardashian-like in your cheap usage of your audience. And so that's my only ask. I work with this agency called Night Media, and they run the 50 biggest YouTubers online in the country. So I had them do some analysis. And basically what's fascinating is a bunch of these guys came from venture capital, and venture capital is really good at doing one thing. They're really good at actually figuring out where do we put our cash so that it can get the most return on it, humanly possible. And they realized that 40 cents of every dollar from venture capital was going to these 4 companies, Google, Facebook, Amazon, and Apple. And they're like, that's not great. We're basically giving money to these companies and they are giving it to the bigger companies. So there's some sort of twist. Well, what started to happen is the VCs started to realize, oh, wait a second. What if we could not just go to these big companies, but we could go direct to influencers and circumvent the advertising rules? And that essentially created this creator economy. And creators sort of became the solution to this VC problem of 40 cents of the dollar going to ad spend at the big 4. And so, you probably recognize some of these guys. I don't think that the creator economy will be amazing for every creator. It's going to be the 80-20 rule like everywhere else. We are not going to have every creator making millions and stuff that people say online, but the smart ones are going to make tons of money. And you've seen this a few times over. We've got like Blogilates, I think is her name. You got Barstool, 600 million. Mr. Beast, who went out and tried to raise $100 million at a $1.5 billion valuation. That's what he thinks his company's worth. Nick Bear, public numbers say somewhere between 50 and 150 million in revenue for that company, which means that it's probably worth anywhere from 3 to 5x that. And then we got Ryan Reynolds, Mint Mobile. But look at this one over to the right, which probably a normal person doesn't know her name. Not all influencers are created equal. Is this too soon? I don't know. This is what we want to try to avoid. The more people we have doing stuff like this, the less trust we have as a community. And what we've seen across the country is, does anybody seem really trusting right now in the US? Like if you're on the right, you think the left's all lying. If you're on the left, you think the right's all lying. Nobody trusts anything. We're becoming a much lower trust society. And so this is what we have to avoid, because the one thing that has the highest price on it more than anything else is our reputation if we're playing this attention economy. Your reputation matters a lot less when you don't use eyeballs to convert to dollars. What's fascinating about that is if you look at, like, I picked Emma Chamberlain, for instance, because I don't know her personally and I'm guessing some of her numbers. Based on her audience size, 20 million followers, x6, should be making like $120 million a year. Except guess what she's making? Like 10 to 20 million bucks. Why? She did a stupid business and I don't know her, so like, sorry Emma. She's much better on the internet than I am. She's better at getting attention. But does anybody know what Emma launched? Coffee. Terrible business. Low margin business, super competitive, hard to ship. You have like shipping costs on top of it, very little differentiation able to it. This is a bad business to launch. And so with a creator that has an incredibly strong audience that's really kind of like raving fans about Emma, she got some bad advice. And so you compare this to, like, I sat down with Mr. Beast's team and I said, why did you guys launch Feastables, a chocolate bar? When was the last, this is the wrong audience, when was the last time any of you guys ate a chocolate bar? Like a whole chocolate bar. Like, does anybody do that anymore? Okay, we got one, just for the record. There's one person in here, great business. And I said, why would you launch that? Why wouldn't you launch a business that has reoccurring revenue without shipping costs that can be accelerated on the internet? Now, their argument is, does anybody know Mr. Beast's audience demographics? 12 to 15-year-olds. And so they're like, they buy chocolate bars. I'm like, I also don't think they buy chocolate bars, but like, that's fine. Mr. Beast is doing just fine. He doesn't need my advice. The point here is, what is the right game that you could play? So 6 levels of content monetization. We're going to talk about the 6 of them, and then we can break down which ones you guys have. I like to call this from the rock to skinny teas. Don't sell skinny teas. We all have seen it. We have seen people with attention sell out for short-term gain. VPNs on YouTube. Why does everybody sell VPNs? If you're doing what the entire crowd does, you're basically monetizing wrong. And so we need to start upping the level of the things that we sell. Here's my philosophy. So I basically said, okay, if I want to start a business, so if I was going to invest in the business of you, what's your name? Chris. If I was going to invest in the business of Chris, I want the laziest, easiest idea that has the best ROI. I don't want to make my life hard. I want to have a framework where every time I start something, I say, what if it was really easy and what if it could make a lot of money? And I want to look for the sliding scale where I am at the high end of both of those. And so there are like 6 ways people make money right now on the internet. I'm going to power through these. Level 1, AdSense. Terrible way to make money. If your main monetization method is AdSense right now, you're doing it wrong. You should not be making money purely by AdSense. You want to take the money, that's great, but this is the worst frame. Why? Because you're like the low man on the totem pole. You basically get the crumbs, YouTube takes the cake, right? So we don't want to do this. The cool part about AdSense is super easy, right? Easy business, not very high ROI. Problem is, these things sell for nothing. So when I start a business, I want to start with the end in mind. If I get into a business, can I sell it at some day? If Chris's face is on his YouTube channel, it's basically unsellable unless you want to get into a contract for the rest of your life. Now, anybody here been a creator for a while and felt burned out and not wanted to be in front of the camera for like a minute or two? Yeah, yeah, right? It's real because what you're trying to do is you're trying to turn yourself, aka a job, into a business, and it's not. We got to create real businesses, not have jobs on the internet. Then we got sponsors and custom ads. How many people have worked with sponsors before here? How awesome is it every time? How fun is it? Do you guys just love when T-Mobile tells you, yeah, can you just read these 47 bullet points that will absolutely tank my fucking video, but legal will kill you and you'll be out of contract if you don't do it? It's not a fun game. This is not a fun game to play. The only time this is a fun game to play is when you're so big, you go, this is how we're gonna do it. Take it or leave it. But in the beginning, this is a really not fun game to play. The cool part about it is you can certainly make millions. It's pretty easy and you can make some cash on it. It's not the best way to do it. Then we got a level 3 game. This is my friend Alex, also in the gym space, info products. So I thus far have AdSense in my business. I have sponsors in our business very strategically, and I have info products. We are dominated by info products in my business, right? So we have courses, we have masterminds, we have events. Why? Because they're pretty easy to do if you've operated a business before, level 3 easy, but they're only level 3 ROI. Why is that? Because content actually degrades over time, meaning what I create today, my course today, will not be worth more in 10 years than it is today, will it, right? You have to keep updating it. You have to keep changing it. If you buy a house today, will that house probably be worth more in 10 or 20 years? Yes, it probably will. So info products immediately degrade, basically, over time. The second thing is that people don't typically like to buy info products. So if I'm a private equity firm, I don't go out and buy a ton of info products. It's just not a section that they're in. Now we're getting into the higher level. This is where you guys should be listening and starting to think, how could I apply this to my business? One little secret trick I want to tell you guys, anytime I say something here and you think, fuck, that wouldn't work for me. Can't work in my business. I want you to instead take this little frame switch, which is just like, how could this work for me? How could I apply this to my business? The second I did that, my life changed. Here's an example, Jessica Alba, right? Actually, Aubrey Marcus, he's an example too. These are real products. Now, the benefit of real products is you can make hundreds of millions of dollars. They do not degrade in value over time. These are actual businesses that can be transferred. It's not a job. So this is where we start to like these types of businesses. Now, they're not the highest level of content monetization. And how that's determined is when I say multiples down here, that basically means if I sell a business, in my world, I typically sell businesses for a multiple of profit. So my businesses that are in small business land, if I'm doing 100K in profit, I might sell it for 300 to 500K, aka 3 to 5X, right? If you get big enough, you sell for a multiple of revenue. And so in the proprietary IRL products line, that's typically 4 to 7X. If you have a $10 million revenue business, let's say you're Jessica Alba, hers is a lot bigger than that, you might be able to sell for $40 to $70 million, depending on the deal that you do. Level 5. This is where you start playing some serious games. This is Russell Brunson from ClickFunnels. Russell Brunson started like all of us here. He was on the internet, he was making videos, he was doing info product, he was doing AdSense. Russell Brunson will be the first person to tell you he's not a tech guy. And yet he runs a tech company called ClickFunnels that is worth hundreds of millions of dollars, if not close to $1 billion from his audience monetization. He's playing a smarter game. And what you'll start to find with these guys, the smartest players out there, they realize early that if they get the game right, what do? Does anybody know how Russell Brunson grows his business? Other influencers. Other influencers who haven't figured out a smarter monetization method, pays for their audience attention, and basically grows his business. What does First Form do? First Form was like the original micro influencers. So they basically grow their audience through influencers. Claire, for instance, works with them. They have 15,000 what they call legionnaires that are all out there in the fitness space repping their product. And the interesting part about this is look at these multiples. Software and hardware, we're talking 17 and 15x revenue. Those are serious empire building numbers. Then you get to level 6. Nobody talks about this. This is brilliant. Does anybody know Reese Witherspoon's deal with Hello Sunshine? When I saw this, I was like, oh, she is smart. What Reese Witherspoon did, started a book club, right? Oprah 101, book club, gonna talk about books. But Reese is a deal maker. And so Reese said, hey, I realize now that my books create bestsellers and drive hundreds of thousands or millions of copies bought. So Athena, when I highlight your book in my book club as Reese Witherspoon, I also want to give you this opportunity. I want to give you an opportunity, Athena, for me to have a future right to buy the right for video for your business. So I'm going to buy your television and movie rights for your book. And you're like, oh my God.
Oh my God, Reese Witherspoon, I love her.
Reese wants to make my thing into a movie or book. This is amazing. Of course, like basically for nothing, tiny little cost, no problem. I want to buy the rights. And then what happens? When books get really big, she goes, okay, I'm going to exercise that right. Athena, remember when you told me that? Well, now you're a bestseller. Now you have Paramount and all the Hollywood studios coming to you, offering you millions of dollars. You actually realize what this is worth right now, but I have the first right to buy it at my set price. Brilliant. So Reese basically creates a portfolio of these things, calls it Hello Sunshine, wraps up royalties and licensing agreements in them, and sells them to a huge operator, Blackstone, right? And all that is, there's no warehouse with products, there's no huge employee base. It's basically money in the air for licensing and royalty rights. These things, look what these sell for, 20 to 30x. Publishing has the highest multiple level of any industry, higher than SaaS, which I didn't realize until I started doing this analysis. So what I want you guys to think on is, which of these do you not have in your business? I think we spend a lot of time, because I've been a creator for a while now, I would say I spent in the beginning of being a creator, I don't know, 80% creating videos, trying to build my audience, obsessing on that, maybe 2% of my time thinking about the business that I'm selling. And I want you guys to take one weekend, and I want you to pick your smartest friend, and I want you to poke a bunch of bullet holes into your business and figure out which of these could you be best in class at. Now, how to monetize like a Kardashian. I like sometimes hate myself that I have to talk about them like this, but these women are smart, or somebody in their ecosystem is smart on how they monetize. So like, let's give a little respect there. This is also from Night Media. I stole this from them. So basically, here's the exercise that you go through if you want to think about how to make money from your audience. And your audience doesn't have to be big for you to do this. You're the creator, but you find your creator market fit. And to find creator market fit is not that difficult. You basically, if you think about it, Daily Wire came out probably earlier this year and said they had about $200 million in subscription revenue. That doesn't include Jeremy's Razors, which they launched, and I don't know what the numbers are, but I would assume in the tens of millions. And then they launched some sort of chocolate bar. I don't get what is it with these people at chocolate bars. I gotta ask Ben. They essentially have built this business based on subscriptions and then based on ancillary products that is in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And that happened probably over a 3-year time period. I thought I'd do this last little part, like what would I do if I was you? If I could take 3 steps today, not knowing anything about your business, so I could be fucking wrong. If I would do anything with your business today, what do I most often see people not doing? 3 things. Here's where I would start if I was you. Low-hanging fruit. So the first thing I would tell you to do is create a newsletter if you don't have one. This is not your sales drip funnel. This is completely different. This is where you use whatever your unique skill as a creator is. It could be 5 Bullet Friday, like Tim Ferriss, 5 bullets of your favorite things. These things sell for multiples. I invested in this company, Beehive, full disclosure, but Beehive is basically like 4 steps to starting a newsletter. So I think people are crazy. If you think that having followers on Facebook, Instagram, definitely not TikTok these days, or YouTube is a safe place for your business to live, you're wrong. You are building somebody else's empire. Those are rented, not owned audiences. And so we have to own our audience. And the only way you can own your audience today is by having individual data through your email list. So if you don't have a newsletter, this is the easiest thing to start. And lots of people on the internet love to tell me like, nobody reads email anymore. Let me tell you, you're wrong. I have 300,000 people on one newsletter. We have a 52% open rate. That email sells more than anything else that we do. We didn't even talk about this on any of our socials. If I was to send out one email to our email list, we could pack a theater. We could pack 1,000, 2,000 people here from the email list.
That's insanely packed.
It is hugely powerful if you cater to it, and you don't have to go crazy on figuring it out. I would just start and play the game. All right, that's one. Here's the cheat code. Now this is really, really important, and most people on the internet would think that this was a snooze, which is almost every business that I've seen that's worth hundreds of millions of dollars has a number 2 that operates, and it's not the creator. Up and to the right, you actually have my friend Kat, who runs Nick Bear's business now. You have to the bottom right, you have Reed, who runs Mr. Beast's business. The Rock, you got Danny Garcia, who used to run his and now runs a lot of the holding companies in tandem. And then obviously you got the GOAT, you got Mama and Baby Kardashian. The reason I say this is because every problem you have is a person, not a tactic. And so your job as a creator is what? To attract attention, except you're playing a level 1 game. The attention we're trying to attract is from a bunch of followers because I'm so smart and I'm gonna be a guru up top. But what you should really be looking for is who are like the 1 to 5 people you could attract that are smarter and better than you at operations, systems, and processes and execution. And you want to have some non-viral videos showing how smart you are and how big of a business you're going to build just to find your goat, your cat, your read. This accelerates a business more than anything else, but most people won't do it because we're so focused on us being the super smart people that we are on the internet. You need somebody who's actually going to make sure the work gets done and probably pull you back. Like, no, not that idea, this idea. This changed my businesses completely. So in every single one of my businesses, in my media business, I have Chris. In my portfolio holding company, I've had April in the past, I had Nikki. So every single one of the businesses needs to have a really solid number two. And if you don't have that, you should spend the next 30 days doing one thing. Find your number two. That's the biggest accelerator. What I would impress upon each of you is, do you ever feel this sense of fear and urgency that you won't stay relevant forever? That this won't continue, that the business won't keep growing, that what if this stops? And what I will say is, in the attention economy, that's true. You should believe that little voice inside that makes you scared that you won't stay relevant forever, because this is one of the few things that's true. Unless you build a business that is not reliant on you and your face for sales, you do not have a real business. And so believe that little voice and take the steps now while you guys are still at the top of your game. How many 65-year-old YouTubers are there? You guys watch a lot of their content? Yeah, me neither. So I'm really honest about the fact that this game won't last forever. So let's play the game intensely while we can. And then the thing that stuck with me the most from Andy is this idea of long-term games with long-term people. How can you find a few people in your company that you can build something bigger than yourself, so when you're tired, you can actually take a break, that don't want to be the face, but want to support the mission? And how can you build a dream so big that you replace other people's dreams? Because that's what happens when you get employees. They have their own hopes and dreams. Don't you think they want to be the CEO? Don't you think they want to make decisions? You have to build something, a vision so big that they are willing to give up on their dreams because yours is better. And you do that all day with your audience. What would happen if you did that inside of your business? Your business will completely change. It'll never be the same. Then you'll come back here and you'll say, thank you, Cody. And it'll be really great for me.
What do you do to stop caring about the haters? How do you deal with that?
You just genuinely gotta not give a fuck. We're all in verbally abusive relationships with our smartphones. Why would you go to a place where somebody's constantly telling you that you ain't shit? If you were married to a person like that, you wouldn't stick around in that relationship. So why do we take our monkey asses over to social media, especially Twitter?
Charlemagne the God has built his career by telling the truth out loud and doing the inner work to handle the fallout. In this episode, we're gonna get tactical about how to have difficult conversations, how to win, what it takes to win, how to deal with things when that's not going well, and we're gonna break down the biggest lies people tell themselves about the world around them, acceptance, and how to actually make yourself better without hating yourself. What do you think the most important question is to ask in a conversation when you want to find the truth?
Oh, I definitely think it's why. In particular, politicians always ask the question twice.
I aspire to be this level of 50 Cent petty. Talk to me about what's happening there.
And the things that I've seen, I get it. Don't offend the wrong person. Yeah, that's one of the 48 laws of power. Do not offend the wrong person, because you might have an enemy for life.
So I kind of want to start with the fact that you've interviewed all of these legends for years. And I'm so curious, when you're interviewing big names, one of the most interesting parts for me listening to you is you don't let them go easy. You got the hard questions almost always with a lot of empathy, I think.
Nowadays.
Before
Nowadays, more empathy.
Interesting. Back in the day, you went at them?
I wasn't even thinking about it. It was just I didn't even look at them as humans, so to speak. I was just, I had a job to do, and I felt like I wanted to ask these questions as a curious person, right? Mm-hmm. And because, I always want to ask the questions that other people want to know about. And so it's just I was going to do that regardless. So I didn't even look at a person as a human. I know that sounds crazy, right? But I really didn't. It was just the subject of an interview. And I didn't think about this person is going to leave here and they might have a whole family or kids, or, they're going to be thinking about, these things later on. So it's just I just used to ask the question.
Now, do you think you're nicer? Are you softer?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would hope so. I don't. Yeah, nicer, softer. Like those aren't negative words, right? Like a lot of people like to act like those are negative words in this business. But I mean, some of the nicest, most softest people are known as some of the greatest interviewers ever. Like personally, I like the Larry Kings of the world, right? Because they just had an intellectual curiosity. I remember one time Larry King told me, God bless the dead, Larry King said, the most important question you can ask in an interview, Charlamagne, is why? And so that's a simple question, but it does help you to dig, very deep. But then I love the interview style of people like, Barbara Walters as well. It might have came off as, intrusive and aggressive, but she knew that she had a job to do. And if that person is sitting in front of you as just a fan of culture, you have certain questions you're going to ask, but you also know that the people watching have questions they want you to ask. So I think it's a combination of both. So nice isn't a bad intention to approach, an interview with. Like you can still be nice and still ask the hard-hitting questions.
What do you think the most important question is to ask in a conversation when you want to find the truth?
Oh, I definitely think it's why. And I definitely think when you're, interviewing people, in particular politicians, always ask the question twice. Because when you ask the question, they'll have a prepared answer for it, right? But then when you ask them again and say, but why? Now they really got an answer from the human aspect and not the politician. We sat around with our team and these are the answers we came up with to answer, this question. They really got to answer it. So I think, asking whatever the question is twice, but then when you ask it again, that's when you hit them with but why though?
Interesting. How much do you prep for an interview?
Oh, a lot.
What does that look like?
Like I said, I'm a fan of culture. And when I say culture, I don't just mean entertainment. I mean everything from sports to, politics, because politics is pop culture now, to, spiritualness, mindfulness, like all of these different things. So I'm usually already kind of well versed on whoever it is I'm sitting down talking to. But then, when you're sitting down to have an interview, you just want to see what's really going on, like in that moment, because usually like most people have something going on in that moment that you would want to talk about. If it's a author who has a book out, read their book. If it's a, person who dropped a movie or a TV show, watch the movie, watch the TV show, just so you can be, well versed on that individual. But I also like the sense of discovery that happens in interviews. So you don't want to be over prepped, right? Because sometimes you'll be talking to a person and you kind of already know where they're going with the conversation. So you might be saying things before they say it. So it's like sometimes I just like the sense of discovery of finding things out, in conversation.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think about it a lot. I mean, you have a giant audience. But I remember it was just a few weeks ago when I realized, wow, one episode, if you consider shorts and YouTube too, is going to get a couple million people to watch it.
Yeah.
And if that means there's 1 million hours spent listening to this moment, it's kind of fucking scary.
I love it.
I better value it.
Yes.
What if we waste their time? What if we give them a bunch of bullshit?
But that's the thing. What you just said, Codie, is absolutely true. But I look at it also from another angle of, and I know this is going to sound dark, but what about when these people die? Like literally, like over the last 15 years, I've had conversations with a lot of people who are no longer here. So when I sit down with people, that's what I think about. What if this is this person's last conversation ever? What if it's my last conversation ever? Like, but usually when you're talking to these people, yes, what I'm saying? But usually when you're talking to these individuals, these are moments in time that when, this person gets older, they might use for documentaries, or when this person passes away, they might use for documentaries. These are things that that other interviewers are going to reference when they sit down, to have conversations with these individuals. Like, yo, I saw you on, Codie Sanchez show. I saw you on Breakfast Club with Charlamagne, and you said this. Like, so that's another way that I approach those conversations as well.
That's interesting. You seem pretty obsessed with what you do. Are you?
I think you got to be. Yeah. I think you got to be obsessed with, whatever it is that you do to actually have success. Like, if you're not obsessed about something, like, if you're not obsessed about, being on these microphones, or if LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, God bless the day, Kobe, if they're not obsessed with what they do on the basketball court, if you're a public servant, if you're not obsessed, with, doing the bidding of the people in the streets, right? Like if you're not obsessed with what it is that you do, then why are you doing it? Like that's why they call it a passion, like that thing that you would do for free. Yes, I'm obsessed with communicating on these microphones, 100%, because I look at myself, like a public servant. And because I know that, I am serving the needs of the public every day, whether it's through making them laugh, whether it's through informing them, whether it's through, having somebody on that's going to say something beneficial to them, that's going to get them, on a path of righteousness with spirituality, or, decide to start going to therapy because, we having conversations about mental health, whatever it is, you got to be obsessed with what it is that you do.
How did you figure out what you were obsessed with, or how did you find this path? I think so many people, and a lot of people listening, they say that like, I don't know what I'm passionate about, or yeah, maybe I want to have a podcast, or is that just mimetic desire? Like, how does somebody who's totally lost and not sure what they're obsessed in, is there a trick to find what you could become obsessed with?
Man, that is an amazing question. It's a layered question because I can only speak for me, right? When I started off, I was born in 1978. Right. So I started doing radio back in 1998. Right. I started off as an intern in Charleston, South Carolina at Z93 Jams in 1998. And the reason I even, got there is because I was just trying to find something positive to do. Because of the way I was living in the street. And it's so funny that all of the things I would get in trouble for in school, being disruptive, talking too much, being the class clown, all of those things were actual qualities that when I got on the microphone helped me, right? So when I started off doing radio, I started off as an intern in 1998. I didn't get on the air until like 1999. I always got to salute my guy, Ron White. He texted me today and said, I think this is one of those times where you're ignoring me. Or you set a boundary with me. And he's right. But salute to my guy, Ron. But he's the first person to ever put me on air, right? Because I was an intern and I worked in the promotions department, so I would drive the van and put posters up and all of that stuff when the actual talent was on, doing their remotes. But then Ron was like, "Yo, have you ever thought about being on the air?" Right? And I'm like, "No, but what's up?" And so they started putting me on the air, and it was literally one of those things that I just knew this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I remember the moment I was in the radio station doing overnights. Overnights is, midnight to 6 a.m, where it just hit me like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. But I don't just want to be a local radio personality, doing the time and temperature, in a city. I want to be a super jock. The super jocks back then were the Tom Joyners, and the Doug Banks, God bless the dead. Salute to my guy, Russ Parr, Howard Stern, Angie Martinez, Wendy Williams. Those are the people you thought about when you thought about like the super jocks. And that's what I wanted to be. And I knew that I wanted to be that since 1999.
Wow. And
I want to add one more thing.
Get in there.
In my first book, Black Privilege, Opportunity Comes to Those Who Create It, New York Times bestseller.
Great book. I read it.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
I have a chapter called Fuck Your Dreams. And the reason I say fuck your dreams is the name of the chapter, but the actual ideology is fuck your dreams if it's not your dream. A lot of times we see things working for other people and we say to ourselves, you know what, this is what I should be doing. But that's not what God has planned for you. Like God has something destined for you to unlock your greatness, but you got to figure out what that is. Like it's not just because you see everybody with a podcast don't mean that you should have a podcast. Just because you see these people on radio having success doesn't mean that you should, run to be a radio personality. Like, you should, even if you feel called to those spaces, number one, ask yourself why, right? What is your actual intention? If it's I want to make money and I want to be famous, that's not a real intention. What is your actual why to wanting to be in these spaces? And if you do feel called to be in these spaces, explore every aspect of the space. Like right now, we're recording this podcast in this studio. Somebody had to set up these cameras. Somebody had to set up these microphones, right? There's producers that are listening to us talk right now. There's all type of ways to be in this space, be in this business, and not be doing what you and I are doing right now. So that's what I would tell folks. If you do feel called to certain spaces in certain areas, doesn't mean that you're supposed to be Cody. Doesn't mean that you're supposed to be Charlamagne. figure out what that means and why you're being called.
You know, you talked about wanting to be a super jock, and let's just call that like one of the greatest of your profession.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think it takes to be the greatest in any profession? Like these days, there's a lot of people that'll say work-life balance matters a lot. Can you have work-life balance on your way up to greatness?
Yes. I might have answered that different some years ago. But yes, you can have work-life balance. I would actually tell people that, you know, in this profession, work-life balance is actually what's probably going to make you have more success. Because for what we do, you know, on these microphones, being able to communicate life in a way that connects with people is what kind of makes people gravitate towards us. So you got to live life in order to be able to do that, right? So when I'm, you know, like I just came back from Cape Town, you know, South Africa, and I was there throughout the whole holidays, and it's just interesting to watch people from other countries and how they gravitate towards, you know, somebody from another country just because they've been listening to them, you know, for so long. And one of the things that a lot of the people kept coming up to me saying was, "Thank you for embracing our continent the way that you do. Thank you for having," you know, they were naming different, you know, African talent that has been on the show, whether it's, you know, people like DeVito or Burna Boy, or, you know, me being friends with my homegirl DJ Cuppy or Bo Nong. Like they were, you know, my man Casper, I'm gonna mispronounce his last name, so I'm just gonna say Casper. Y'all know who I'm talking about. But they were coming up to me because of the way that I connect with them and how I'm able to communicate my experience as a Black American, appreciating what it is that they do and bringing them on my platform and having a conversation. So it's just, I think that, you got work-life balance matter. Like I'm able to go to South Africa and like experience that place for myself. And then now come back to America and talk to my listeners who may never have been to South Africa. I've had the pleasure of being, you know, going to Johannesburg and Cape Town. And that might make more people want to go to Cape Town and Johannesburg just listening to me communicate my experiences there. So yeah, I think you gotta have work-life balance because you have to live life, right? And not even just in this profession, just in general. Like, do yourself a favor and go live some life. You got 168 hours in a week. You know how much time that is? Like 168 hours. You should have more than enough time to do what it is you got to do as far as your living in your career is concerned, but also go out there and just have some time for yourself and your family.
You know what I think we should talk about that we talked about before? We were talking about time.
Mm-hmm.
And I said a line like, we got to be done at this time. I worry about not respecting people in time. I'm married to a military man. So he really associates lateness or extension with disrespect, which is kind of like a military mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I'm going to make sure we're out on time. And you had like a really interesting take on a book you had read in two different types of time.
Yeah, it's this book that I love to read. It's called The Big Leap. Like I read it, you know, often. But it's written by Gay Hendricks, and he talks about Newtonian time and Einstein time. And Einstein time, if I'm saying it correctly, Einstein time is basically us realizing that we create time. Now, I do agree you should respect, you know, people's time. But when we say things like, I don't have the time for that. Yes, you do. You just don't want to do it. And you're using time as the scapegoat. And the example he uses is like your kid might walk in and your kid might ask you to play. And you'd be like, I don't have time for that right now. But if your kid walked in and your kid was, you know, cut and bleeding, you would stop everything and you would have the time to do whatever it is to make your child stop bleeding and stop feeling that pain. And so it's just the way we look at, you know, what time is. Instead of treating time like it's something that's out of our control, or, you know, we're a victim to it. No, you have all the time that you create.
So do you not say the words, I don't have time? Do you replace it with something?
That's why I constantly read books, the same book over and over, right? I mean, like when I'm really into a book, I read it over and over because you want to constantly try to practice these things that you are learning in that book. But yeah, it's like, there's no such thing as not having time. the other saying that we always say is you make time for what you want to make time for. So instead of saying, I don't have time, I don't want to right now. Like, it's like somebody comes to me right now and is like, hey, man, I would really love if you would be at such and such, blah, blah, blah. Let me talk to my assistant so I can check my schedule and see if I can squeeze it. You don't really want to do it because things that you actually want to do, oh my God, I'm there. Like, yo, let's figure it out. Like, then that's when you hit your team and like, yo, this person wants me to do X, Y, and Z, be X, Y, and Z. Let's figure it out. And I think that's actually what it is. Instead of saying I don't have time, to be like I don't want to. That's this year right here is all about the no.
Wow.
Like that's really a boundary that I think that we are just afraid to set a lot. Like we're afraid to tell people no because all of us are people pleasers, in different ways, and we all want that validation from other humans, and we hate telling other humans no because we feel like if we tell them no, then they're not going to look at us the same, or they're not going to respect us the same, or they're not going to, speak of us in a positive way. There's nothing wrong with telling somebody, no, I don't want to right now.
Well, it's good that you say that because I think, if I was to just watch you on the internet, I might not think Charlemagne the people pleaser. That's probably not like one of the things I would label you, know? And so I think people would say, no, he probably sets pretty firm boundaries. I bet he's really good at that. But is that even something that you've struggled with? Saying,
oh, absolutely. I've been a people pleaser for a long time. And I mean, people pleasing doesn't always look like just allowing people to do whatever it is they want, you to do. Sometimes people pleasing looks like being overly aggressive in an interview. You know what I'm saying? Bombarding somebody with questions because you're worried about what the people watching are going to say about you. If you got a reputation, right, as this hard-hitting question asker, then you feel like you got to ask the hard-hitting questions. That's people pleasing. If you're doing it because you're worried about how other people are going to take it, how other people are going to consider it, how other people are going to view it, that is people pleasing.
It's interesting because you've been at this game a long time and you've had, people hating on you for things. You've had people loving on you for things. You've had some of the same people who used to love you, hate you for things multiple times,
That's right.
And so I'm curious what do you do to stop caring about the haters? Like, what do you do when you're getting backlash? Everybody seems to be talking shit. Nobody likes you. How do you deal with that?
You just genuinely gotta not give a fuck. And I have two people in my life that gave me great pieces of advice that I always reference, even if, at times I didn't always feel what they were saying. Like I didn't apply it, right? My man Cadillac Jack, who along with my guy G-Spin put together the Breakfast Club. Cadillac Jack told me early on in the Breakfast Club, I need you to remember the rule of 10. What's the rule of 10? The rule of 10 is 3 people gonna like you, 3 people not gonna like you, 4 people don't even know what the fuck's going on. And that is very true in life. Like that is just the absolute truth. Like we are so concerned about what everybody thinks, and we think everybody is paying attention to us. 4 people don't even know what the hell is going on. And then the 3 people that like you, they gonna like you no matter what. The 3 people that don't like you, they not gonna like you no matter what. But guess what? The algorithm don't know the difference. So when the 3 people that like you are talking about you, great. When the 3 people that don't like you are talking about you, great. Your name is just all throughout the algorithm. My daddy used to always say to me, you're never as good as they say you are, and you're never as bad as they say you are. That one, I've always understood. I've always been like right in the middle with that. And I mean, that's really just life, right? Like you have to be a very egotistical, narcissistic person to think that everybody likes you and to think that everybody's thinking about you, right? Like there is nobody on this planet, forget humans, there is nothing on this planet that everybody universally loves, not even God. Like, no, I want you to just think about that for a second. There is nothing, not even puppies, not ice cream, some of the purest things that you can think about. There is nothing on this planet that everybody universally loves. So for me, hey, man, I'm just happy I make you feel something. I really genuinely feel that. I'm just happy I make you feel something because I would rather be, thought of in some way than to not be thought about at all.
This is a secret nobody shares. I've done thousands of deals, but until now, I've never shared the most valuable 10% publicly because I want to buy these businesses myself. Then I realized that if you guys buy the businesses, I get to do the deals with you. So this year at Main Street Millionaire Live, it is your chance to see our insider strategies. I'll teach you how we find, buy, and scale a business step by step with the frameworks that I literally use to buy all these businesses. So if you want to go from an aspiring owner to someone actually running a profitable business, join me. I'll give you my blueprint, and maybe we end up doing deals together.
You had this conversation with 50 Cent before he put out the documentary, and you had you basically were prescient about what was happening in the world. And now, I mean, it's not really therapy for 50, but watching him hold this level of revenge am I a sick person that I watch it and the memes that are I aspire to have this level of revenge that 50 Cent has.
Yeah.
I mean,
50 is a Cancer. I'm a Cancer. So I understand 50's level of petty.
You do?
I completely understand 50's level of petty. Plus, I'm privy to a lot of the whole backstory between him and somebody like Diddy. So I get it. People and it's funny. 50 is such an interesting person to me, and I've been having these conversations about 50 for years. I remember it started with. I remember a long time ago, a couple of executives in the business was talking to me about 50, and they was like, why does he always got to go after Urban Ja? Why can't he just finally, God bless the dead, why can't he just let it go? I'm like, he got shot 9 times. They've had fist fights. He got stabbed by them. You wouldn't really let that go either. That's not something you could just, I don't even think a therapist could tell you just to let that go. And they were like, you know what? You're right. You know what I'm saying? So there's always, and I remember 50 said this one time. 50 was like, people always see when I punch, but they don't see when the person swung at me first.
Oh, God.
You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that, I'm not saying everything, he does is justified, because I really don't know. But from the things that I've seen, I get it. I completely, understand it. And that's why you got to just be, don't offend the wrong person.
True.
Yeah, that's one of the 4-day laws of power. Do not offend the wrong person, because you might have an enemy for life.
Dude, I would never want to 50, just cut the podcast, edit it out.
And honestly, man, sometimes that is therapeutic within itself. Just saying fuck a person. I don't fuck with you. Who says we have to fuck with people?
Yeah, I know.
Who says that? We talk about that statement, money is the root of all evil. Who told us that we gotta forgive everybody? Who told us that, we gotta love everybody? Who said that? Sometimes it's fuck this person, and it's fuck this person for life, and I don't fuck with them. And people be like, man, you exhausting too much energy on that individual. Says who? And what if I want to exhaust this energy on this individual? What if I want, to do exactly what it is that I'm doing, and it makes me happy to do it? Who am I to tell that person that they're wrong? And by the way, whatever energy comes back to you from doing that, he got to deal with that. And I think he's fully aware.
Yeah.
I think he's fully aware of it, and it does not bother him in any way, shape, or form. And there's a certain level of freedom that I admire. Yeah. It is.
That smile when he does.
It's a certain, and by the way, I've had these conversations with him,
have you?
On air, off air, because I've been there. He's one of the most interesting, people to me, just because he's a Cancer, and there's a lot of things that I relate to.
And he seems like a smart motherfucker.
Oh, he's brilliant. You don't come out of South Side Jamaica, Queens, and achieve the things that he's achieved. Achieved things, lost things, got him back triple, not even having success in multiple industries. That's what he don't get enough credit for. Yeah, he did his thing in music, but he went from an artist, started his own label, had successful artists under his label. I'm glad we're having this conversation as well. But he's another person that I really look at, as a blueprint, because that's what you're supposed to do. And I remember, he says things that I remember. He said, I'm a general with G Unit, but I'm a soldier when I'm with Eminem and Dr. Dre. That right there is a jewel, because I hate when people say things like, yeah, but you work for a corporation, and I also own a lot of things on my as well. So what's the problem? Like you can do both. And to watch him go from a talent, right, to starting his own record label, to having 4 or 5 successful artists, then having success with clothing, having success with a sneaker, then now in television, in film. Do you know how hard that is?
Cannot imagine.
This guy has multiple franchises of various TV shows.
Yeah. And he lost it. That's the part that I think, like, coming back, like the mental fortitude to lose it, to be in bankruptcy, like you can make it. You can make it.
Absolutely.
But to lose it and get it back?
And to get it back.
Oof.
Yeah. And to and to remain himself throughout it all.
Yeah.
I actually think sometimes he does that just to remind himself, I'm still me. Let me jump. I be feeling that sometimes, like, let me find somebody to really go at it with right now, just to remind myself I'm still me. Like, I don't know. I got a lot of respect and
I'm going to clip this out. And every
admiration for
time
50.
somebody talks shit, I'm going to re-listen to you. And I'm going to remember this.
But listen,
This is good.
don't listen to me though, because I'm a Cancer and I'm still dealing with my own stuff
know,
too. So
but I can't hold revenge. I think it's a little healthy to be able to keep like a little bit of that edge.
Yeah, and
I
like
let it go.
And I like anti-heroes.
Oh yeah.
That's my thing too. I like
Do you have one? Do you have like a Diddy? Like 50 has one? Do you have one that you're like, yeah, fuck that guy right now. I won't say his name, but Dan.
Yeah, but I already won.
Oh shoot! You
I
need a
won
new
several.
one.
I done won several. I've had a few, but I've won. So it's like it's not the same. You know what I mean? There's nobody I really want to like stomp on them while they. I don't. And probably, you know what? Probably I've never had one to that level. I probably never had one to that level. I've never had nobody try to like physically, like. Well, I'm lying. I have had people send people to physically harm me, but it's not like a punch in the face. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like a shooting or a stabbing or anything like that. So, yeah. But when I say I like anti-heroes, I like the Batmans of the world. I like the, Tony Starks, the Deadpools, the Wolverines. You know what I mean? I like those type of anti-heroes. I'm the guy that, I root for the villain in movies sometimes, and to me, like 50 is the ultimate hip hop anti-hero.
What about you? You've been doing Breakfast Club for many years now.
15.
You've been online for, how long have you been online before Breakfast? Now we're going to tell everybody how old you are. Basically.
No. Let me see. I mean, there's 2 different types. I'm old enough to remember that there's 2 different types of online, right?
What was the first type?
Because there
Radio?
was the MySpaces.
Oh, fuck. I remember that.
You know what I'm
Yeah, like
saying?
the square people. And
That's
you got
right.
upset. Uh-huh.
So there was the
I remember that.
MySpaces. There was the Black Planets, but those weren't necessarily social media. Like you might be in a forum or a chat room, I forgot what they used to call them, chat rooms or something back then. But yeah, I remember Twitter. I remember when I got on Twitter so early, I didn't even know that people replied to you. I remember when somebody said, you got to check your ads. I think it might have been Little Duval or somebody I was talking to. And I'm like, I don't really like Twitter, man. You just be on there, like you just be on there talking to yourself. And he was like, what do you mean you be on there talking to yourself? I'm like, I post stuff, but it's just there. And he was like, man, you got to check your ads. I'm like, the ads? And then that's when you clicked on your ads and you started seeing everybody atting you. And you're like, oh,
But you're like, I
okay.
wish I never knew that existed. That's
Yeah.
how I feel about it some days.
I stopped going on Twitter in like 2018, 2019. But
healthy.
we got on, I think I got on Twitter in like 07, 08 maybe? Yeah.
Yeah, that place is a little wild.
Oh, it's not good for my mental health in no way, shape, or form. But you got to know that though. We're all in verbally abusive relationships with our smartphones. Why would you go to a place where somebody's constantly telling you that you ain't shit? If you were married to a person like that, you wouldn't stick around in that relationship. If you were at a job and you had a boss talking to you like that, I don't think you would stick around in that relationship. So why do we do that with social media? Like, and I'm not, forget just the block features and the unfollowing folks. I'd rather not even go over there. Like, I'm a stern believer in if somebody be like, hey man, why don't you come over to the house? Or, we having this party, or we having a cookout. Who all over there? If they say the wrong people and the wrong energy, you not going. So why do we take our monkey asses over to social media, especially Twitter? Like, I have no desire to be over there.
That's really smart. A little social cleanse.
I have not been on this since 2018.
What about, like, you've probably changed a lot since 2018. Like, I imagine 15 years online. Are there some things that you have said before, like back in the day, you're like, this is true, I believe it with all of my being, and now, fuck, I was wrong.
I remember talking to Malcolm Gladwell one time, and Malcolm Gladwell said to me, you know, there's a lot of things that I wrote in books like The Outliers that I don't necessarily believe anymore.
Interesting.
And I was like, oh my God, like that kind of threw me for a loop. But then I had to think to myself, like, just because he wrote it in that book and he has maybe evolved and, you know, learned a lot more information and it's taken him someplace else, doesn't mean that somebody else isn't going to pick up that book right now and it's going to meet them where they are.
Do you think about your books that way? Like, when I was going back through and I hadn't read one, I didn't realize you had multiple books. And so when when I went back and I was reading, so I had read Black Privilege. And then when I went through and I was looking at Get Honest or Die Lying.
Yep, that's my last one, my third one. Yep.
I didn't realize that you had such a focus on mental health. And I don't know why. I guess I had seen Breakfast Club and I'd thought of your persona a lot there. But I like asking you these questions because when I think about the person who's listening here, I'm always thinking about them, maybe a little less than the guest. Like, what does Charlemagne have that I feel like every human listening is just gonna it's gonna blow their mind this week and it's gonna help their life somehow. And that's kind of how I think about you. It's like you have this amazing career, but it's mostly like, what do you got that they need? You know? And when I think about your career in particular, there's a couple ways I want to go with it that I think could be really helpful with people. One, conversations, we're having less of them. You have them deeply. And even with people you don't, well, I don't know if you don't like them or not, but maybe you don't agree with everything. Maybe you sometimes don't like them. And I guess one of the questions I have for you is like, what do you do when you have a conversation with somebody you don't like or agree with?
You just agree to disagree. Like, I don't think, I don't know if there's too many people I've had conversations with who I don't like because I don't know them personally not to like them. Yeah, I may not like their ideologies. I may not like, you know, some of their worldviews, but I don't know them personally to not like them. And I mean, that's what conversation is for. And just because you have a conversation with a person doesn't mean you're going to end up liking them at the end of the conversation. But I feel like as human beings, we should, you know, respect each other enough to discuss. And even if we discuss and debate and, you know, argue and, you know, we might even get to yelling in an interview. But I think that's just what happens when you are having a real, healthy, honest conversation with somebody. So I think this is our job. Like, I'm a radio personality. I'm a podcast person. I'm a media personality, right? Just like you're a media personality. If I choose to invite you into my space and have a conversation with you, it is ridiculous to just then say, you know what, I'm going to slam dunk on this person. I'm inviting this person in my space just to slam dunk on them. If you get dunked on in the midst of the conversation, that's different. But I invited you for a conversation. So have the conversation and you know, see where it goes.
Do you get a lot of comments online like, why are you having this person on?
All the time.
All the time. What do you say to the people who won't have a conversation with somebody? Like, what if somebody's listening right now, and this happens around the holidays, probably good timing for it. They're like, I'm not fucking going home because Aunt Becky loves insert one political party, and I don't want to talk to them.
I think that's the most ridiculous thing in the world. And the reason I think that's the most ridiculous thing in the world, because, you know, politics are very fleeting, right? In the next few years, hopefully, right, if we still have free and fair elections, they'll be electing, you know, somebody else, and there'll be a lot of damage done because of the current administration, but the way people felt will kind of be a thing of the past, right? Maybe. You know, I mean, you know, Maya Angelou said that, you know, people will forget what you did, they'll forget what you said, they'll never forget how you made them feel. So maybe people will forget about it. But man, I've been alive long enough to have seen how this goes, you know, before. And I mean, that's your family member. Don't blame who's in the White House on you not wanting to talk to your family member. You never liked this person to begin with. Like, cut it out. Like, because if you could just cut me off or cut somebody off based on who they voted for, you never really liked that person. This goes back to what we were saying about time. Don't blame time for you not wanting to do something. You don't like this individual You never really did, and now you feel like you got a valid excuse to not talk to that person anymore. And I feel like, when it comes to just us as media personalities, listen, I've seen media personalities, say, I don't know why, Charlamagne talks to these kind of people, or why the Breakfast Club talks to these kind of people. They don't say that to anybody else but us. Like, they don't say that to Jake Tapper. Right? Historically, they didn't say that to people like, Diane Sawyer, Barbara Walters, Oprah Winfrey. I grew up in the era of watching Donahue have the Grand Wizard of the KKK on. Yeah. Right? And I grew up in the era of, Donahue would host, not just Donahue, everybody would talk to people that they didn't necessarily agree with. Right? Nobody said anything back then. So why is it such a thing now? And I would tell all of these media personalities, when you say things like, man, I would have never done that. That's why you're not me. That's just the reality of the situation. That's why you're not me. So don't ask yourself why you don't get the things that I get, per se. Yeah. Because you don't do the things that I do. I have no problem sitting down having conversations with people that I may not agree with. But that's just because of the great personalities that I saw before me. They were doing the same thing. They used to do specials where they would go talk to Charles Manson while he was in prison. They talked to Jeffrey Dahmer. He ate people. Like, and you're not going to talk to somebody just because they got a different
Republican.
A Republican? That's crazy. That's crazy to me. I'm also old enough to remember when people hated guys like George W. Bush. Now everybody loves George, but they love watching George Bush with Michelle Obama, and it's so cute, such a great relationship. I remember when y'all were calling George Bush the Antichrist.
Oh, it's true. Well, or if you go back to history, Democrats were actually Republicans. Republicans were actually Democrats. Like the whole party, they've changed back and forth.
They had different ideologies at the time, though. So
totally. But it's kind of wild to see, what used to be a Democrat today was a Republican at one point, and vice versa. It's like we put these hard lines on it. But it's a really interesting point because you're right. I actually went to journalism school. I always wanted to be a journalist. I ended up in business and finance for all these other reasons. I guess we've come back. But I used to love Walter Cronkite for that reason.
Yeah. There was a time where you would want to get that interview. Like, we saw freaking Barbara Walters went and spoke to Fidel Castro. Like, those were the type of things that we constantly saw the greats do. So who are we to be like, nah, I'm not going to do that. Nah, that's so if not you, who? And why not talk to that person and ask that person the questions that, the world may want to know?
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about like the business side for a second. One, congratulations. Amazing news recently on a huge deal you did. It's so cool.
Thank you. Re-signed with iHeartMedia.
Yeah. And I think not even to get into details on that, but it's really cool to see somebody do an incredible deal. And do a re-signing and have it go really public and have it be in this new age of media, which is, I think, typically deals like that, you had to be with CNN or CNBC or some huge network. And now this is kind of you, you could move Breakfast Club, Charlamagne, anywhere, and you're the network now. So it's really cool to see. Congratulations.
Yeah. And even salute to iHeart. I've been with iHeart for 15 years, started off as a talent, then became a partner when I created the Black Effect Podcast Network, which is, by far the largest podcast network, for Black podcasts. I think right now we got 50 to 60 podcasts but we wanted to create a space that was specifically for Black podcasters because that didn't exist. I'm the type of person, I like to look around the marketplace and, see what's missing from the marketplace. And that was something that was missing to me. Yeah. I loved what Bill Simmons was doing with The Ringer. I loved, watching what they were doing with Smartless. I loved watching what they were doing with Gimlet. But I saw a lot of these Black creators who were doing two things, right? They were putting their podcast out, but it was video first. So their videos were getting tremendous views, but the audio wasn't necessarily reflecting that.
Yeah, that's hard to grow.
We all know that the money is in the audio. Yeah. So I was like, man, what if we created this network, got these individuals who already have these, podcasts, put us, all under one umbrella and use iHeart sales team to really, really pump their audio, because iHeart is the biggest, conglomerate when it comes to audio. Nobody does audio better than iHeart. I'm not saying that because I work with them. I'm saying that because it's the truth, right? So radio, podcasting, nobody does audio better than iHeart. And man, if I could show y'all the data of some of these podcasts who had these big video numbers, but the audio numbers weren't necessarily matching the video, and how when they partnered with Black Effect and iHeart, how we were able to get those audio numbers booming to the point where we're at like 11 million, 12 million audio downloads a month. Wow. And that makes, Black Effect, one of the biggest podcast networks out there. Like, that's very rare air to be, have a network getting 11 million, 12 million audio downloads a month. And things like that is what makes you a lot more valuable to whatever company you're with.
What's interesting, I kind of want to talk about that for a second. I don't know about you, but I had a long period, and I'm thinking through it right now, but where I'm Latina and a chick, and it always bothered me when somebody would reach out to me and say like, hey, we want to talk to you. You're a female CEO. We'd love to have a female CEO come speak about XYZ. Or like, you're a Latina CEO. Come speak. And I kind of would be like, one, if it was female CEO, I'd be like, I don't know what my vagina has to do with it. Like, I'm just in charge of this business, and I happen to have that anatomy, you know? And I remember I did write that in one email, and then one of my execs was like, maybe we could not do that. But I kind of like took it personal. I had a little chip on my shoulder. Maybe I have less of one now, but I'm curious for you, like, when people say like, Charlemagne, Black CEO, come speak. Like, are you like, yeah, fuck yeah, because I represent all these people? Or are you like, who cares? I'm a CEO. I just happen to be Black. Like, how do you think about that?
That's a great question. I don't, when I pull up the Chick-fil-A, it don't bother me that, they specialize in chicken sandwiches. I'm pulling up to Chick-fil-A because they specialize in chicken sandwiches, Or if I want to go to, pizza, if I want pizza that night, I'm not going to go to a burger spot.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, for me, it don't bother me, because we are unicorns, because we can't sit here and act like we don't understand the country that we live in. We live in the country called America. America is, a country that was founded on white supremacy. Like, just call it what it is, right? So like, that is what people think of when they think of America. That's what they've always presented to us, right? Like a white man. Mm-hmm. So I don't have a problem being a quote unquote unicorn in this space. If you are a woman CEO who's done great things, hey, sadly, we live in a country that doesn't think women can do amazing things. Like, this is a country that, just gave women the right to vote in our lifetime, right? So how they kind of already perceive women. So when they look at you as a woman CEO, they're looking at you like, damn, I can't believe she did all. I can't believe she got that done. Why? Because you're a woman. Same thing with a Black person. Why? I can't believe that a Black person could achieve those kind of things, because of all of the things that this country has thrown at us historically. So things like that do not bother me. If you want me to come out here and be the bearded woman at the circus, or like, I don't have no problem with that, because I feel like, by the time I sit down with you and have a conversation, you're going to say to yourself, I understand why that person is in the position that they're in.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think culture and race I don't think about it as much now, because I'm like a little bit of a spreadsheet nerd. But, as I've gotten on the internet more, and then people, of course, they notice you. They're like, yeah, he's Black. And yeah, she's a chick. I'm like, okay, yeah, I guess that's part of the equation.
Yeah,
whatever.
you're stating obvious.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm like, all right. But then I realized, man, actually, there was a bunch of stuff when I was growing up that we didn't actually do that I think hurt us monetarily, and hurt, and by us, I guess I mean women or Latinos in this instance. Like, when I was growing up, you know how they say you don't talk about sex, religion, politics?
Politics, yeah.
For Latinos, religion's cool. Jesus is all around. Like, everybody can talk about Jesus. But you don't talk about sex, you don't talk about politics, you don't talk about money. Like, money's like, nobody talks about that as a Latino. And I think for that reason, it was harder for me to make money, like, growing up, like, because I was like, no, we don't talk about it. It's not good. It's private. Rich people kind of suck because you had to be bad to get it. And so I had all these ingrained narratives. And I'm curious, and like, in Black culture, is it similar at all? Can you talk about money in the same way? Are there like things that hold Black people back monetarily that you're like, why the fuck do we do that and don't do that anymore?
That's a great question. I don't like to answer questions on behalf of the whole Black race, because Black people are not, monolithic. Yep. And, there's a lot of black people who don't like me. So I don't want them to think that I'm speaking. I'm speaking for them. But from my perspective, yeah, a lot of conversations like financial literacy did not happen, in the black community. Like at least in my community. I don't want to say in the black community. At least in my circumference. Like, my father was definitely an entrepreneur, right? Like my father, he owned a fish market when I was young. So I would be there hanging out, working. My father also did construction. So he was an entrepreneur, even though he did work for a construction company for a period of time. But for the most part, all the money he made was, doing things independently. So that was always kind of my mindset. But nobody taught me about, taxes and, high yield savings accounts and stocks. Like I didn't learn about any of that stuff till I got in my late 30s, early 40s. I think the not talking about money thing is interesting though, because of course none of us wanted to be broke, right? That's what led, guys like me to start selling dope, right? Because, you don't want to be broke, but money was never my motivation, ever. A lot of the times, even when I started, selling dope, I was just doing that because the people around me were doing it. And, you would get clowned for being broke, but I never needed money to really get anything that y'all got. Like a lot of times these guys are, trying to get money to impress women and things like that. I wasn't the best looking, but I could hold a really good conversation. I could make you laugh. Like there,
Check.
You know what I mean? There was a lot. The girls that y'all was, trying to get, I was getting just being my natural broke self, right? So it's like money was never my motivation. What was my motivation was wanting to realize my full potential as a person on this planet.
Even
like,
when you were younger, you were
even when
never
I was
scared
younger.
about being broke or not having money? That wasn't part of your equation. Were you religious when you were young?
Yeah, I grew up, my mother was a Jehovah's Witness. My mother was a Jehovah's Witness. My grandmother was a Baptist. My father was a Jehovah's Witness too till he got this fellowship. And then, he started studying Islam. So I was getting hit from all different angles. I had my grandmother who was a Baptist. My mother was a Jehovah's Witness. So, my father who was studying Islam. So I was reading Watchtowers, Awakes, the autobiography of Malcolm X. Like I had it all. But there was different things that motivated me to want to be successful. Like when I heard Biggie Smalls say, being broke at 30 give a brother the chills. Like, right? Or when TLC made No Scrubs. I don't want no scrub. A scrub is a guy sitting in his best friend's ride, on the passenger side, trying to holler at me. Or when Outkast and Goody Mob made, I want to get up. You need to get up, get out and get something. Don't let the days of your life pass by. You need to get up, get out and get something. Don't spend all your days getting high because, you and I got to do for you and I. When you hear that, that's not necessarily about money. That's just about, brother, get up and do something with your life, figure it out. And even back then, man, I had no problem. I thought about going in the military. There was a time I wanted to work at UPS because, I had an uncle who worked at UPS. Like, and same thing with the military. I had my mother's first cousin, his name was Bruce. He was in the military. So I was just looking at all of these different things that could potentially get me off this dirt road in Moncks Corner, South Carolina. It wasn't necessarily always entertainment. Like I had no problem living what people call the so-called American dream. Like you just figure out something, that can make you some money to be able to afford a nice place to stay, have some food on the table. And if you want to have a family one day, you can do that. But, it wasn't necessarily, I want to be rich. I want to be famous. I want to be this, multi-millionaire. It wasn't necessarily that. Like I just wanted to not waste the life that God gave me on this planet.
Yeah, it's true. You have talked a lot about God on your podcast, in your books, here. What is your relationship with God? And how do you use that in your day-to-day?
Man, I'm only sitting here because of God. Whatever you want to call him, Jehovah, Allah, Jesus Christ. Like I'm literally in this position that I'm in right now because from the time that I can remember, from day one, there was a higher power, guiding me. I know we talk about having like praying grandmothers and, praying mothers. I really, really had that. Like I was a kid going to field service every Saturday morning, right? So, as long as I can remember, I've been a praying person, and not just, praying, like praying and asking God for guidance and direction, and like literally feeling that presence of a higher power with me, that higher power literally guiding me and directing me and telling me to go do X, Y, and Z, go do this, go do that, like literally. And, it was the times where I didn't listen to that voice the way I should have, that caused, so-called negative things to happen to me. And the reason I say so-called negative things is because I feel like everything is just a part of this process called life, right? The so-called good, the so-called bad, everything that happens to you while we're living this thing called life is just part of the process that led you and I to both be sitting here, in this moment. But I just feel like the whole way through, it's just been God. And I mean, I remember last year, I said to God, I was praying, meditating, and I said to God, God, I am ready for every single thing you have planned for me on this planet. I said, I want it all. And I know people might hear that and they might think, monetary things are just the good things that come with success. No, I want to experience every single thing that God wants me to experience on this planet. Because I truly believe that. I truly believe that, things don't happen to you, they happen for you. So I don't care what it is. I take good news, so-called good news, the same way I take so-called bad news, because it's just like, all right, well, what God got planned for me next? Like, I got, even today, you might get some news from a business perspective, and you like, I didn't want that to happen, but God clearly has something else planned. So I'm open for it.
So interesting. I have this line. I guess I was raised similar to, I was raised with a lot of religious influence. It didn't permeate, or it did negatively at some point, and I felt like I had to break that. I became sort of an agnostic, atheist. Then I came back to faith. But there's a line that I always think of by this. She was actually a feminist back in the day, Emma Bombeck, and she has this line that I love, which is, she says, "When I stand before God at the end of my days, I hope to be able to say, I have not one drop left. I used every single thing that you gave me."
Yes.
And it every time I'm struggling, I think about that.
Yes.
And I was wondering for you, you're such a man of you read, multiple books a week and many a month, and you're such a man, like you remember all these quotes. Are there quotes that you live by that you like when your faith is struggling that you repeat in your head?
Yeah, I got two, and these are ones that I actually made up. I deal with really bad panic attacks, right? Like I've got a handle on them, in my more recent years. But like when I was young, I used to deal with like these really severe panic attacks, and when I didn't know what they were, when I didn't know that I was having actual panic attacks, I would always repeat this mantra. I would say, I love Jehovah God and his son, Jesus Christ. I love Jehovah God and his son, Jesus Christ. I love Jehovah God and his son, Jesus Christ. Fuck Satan, fuck Satan, fuck Satan. So I would say, I love Jehovah God and his son, Jesus Christ 3 times, and I would say, fuck Satan 3 times. And the reason I would do that is because, when you read in the Bible, in the book of Job, Job's wife kept telling Job, hey, curse God and die, right? Why don't you just curse God and die? So I used to always be like, why would I curse God? Like I'm not gonna ever curse God and die. So let me just curse Satan, because I feel like this what I now know to be anxiety, this panic attack, is him. So I would say, I love Jehovah God and his son Jesus Christ. Fuck Satan. And I can't even front. It would bring me back to center in a real way. I mean, now when I've done a lot more work on myself, so I do meditation and things like that. So I understand mantras, right? Like you understand the mantra when you're counting your beads, when you're meditating, you understand how that can bring you back to center. I was doing that back then and didn't even know it. And my other motto that I always say, yo, keep God first, stay humble, keep working. Anything that happens in my life, I say, keep God first, stay humble, keep working. And I'm glad we're having this conversation because, one thing I've realized over the last few weeks, because, we're taping this like the first week of January, right? Yep. I've watched a lot of people, like when certain things happen, when certain, like you just talked about, my new deal with iHeart. I've watched a lot of people have conversations about that. And man, it really makes me realize how much people don't believe in God and hard work.
Yeah, isn't that true?
Because anytime you get to a certain level of success, they think that you had to get there by some nefarious means. They think that you got to be in the Illuminati, or you busting it open on the casting couch. Men and women, by the way. It ain't just women that they think. It ain't just women they think is busting it open on the casting couch. Men and women they think is busting it open on the casting couch. And it just makes me realize how many people don't believe in God and hard work. Because if you believed in God and hard work, you wouldn't look at somebody else and just say, they only got that because they did some bullshit. You would say, man, I've been watching that person for decades now. I've been doing radio for 28 years, like literally 28 years. Even if you don't count South Carolina, if you've been watching me from the time I started with Wendy, it's been 20 years. You've been watching that person for 20 years. You've literally watched that person grow. You watched them evolve. You watched ups. You watched downs. You watched them go through fire. You watched all of these different things. But the one thing you can't say is that person wasn't consistent and that person wasn't working hard. And then when that person, achieves something, you want to attribute it. You want to give the devil credit for that?
Yeah.
Right? You don't want to give God and hard work any credit whatsoever. So what happens when you achieve a tremendous level of success?
Yeah.
Should we just say, oh, that person only got that because of Satan? That person only got that because they were busting it open on the casting couch? I don't even think people understand the narratives they create that will eventually come back and bite them in the ass as well. So yes, I give God all praises, and I am only here because God has been guiding me all of these years.
It's so true. I remember one of my early mentors said to me, if you hate rich people, then how do you think you're ever going to be rich? Mm-hmm. And I never hated. I'm not really a hateful kind of person. Sometimes I wish. Like Sierra was here the other week on the podcast. I was like, what do you do, when you have a hater? And she's a woman of faith. She's incredible. I've really come to respect her a lot. And she had such a good line. She's like, I give it up to God. I don't worry about it. But she's like, I'd be keeping receipts though, And
Yeah.
she's like, I'd be keeping some names. And I was like, I love that line. Like I remember, forgive. I'll remember though. But I think what happens with a lot of us is like, isn't it weird how we're wired from being young? Like sometimes I'll be on a stage in a business thing and I'll say to the audience, blank is the root of all evil. What's the root of all evil? And they'll just respond, money.
Yeah.
When did we learn that? It's not actually that in the Bible. It is the love of money is the root of all evil. Mm-hmm. But how are we programmed to think that? And so that's when I start realizing maybe it's not always their fault. Like the people who hate on you with this iHeartMedia deal, it hurts my heart a little bit. I'm like, I know right where you are. It's that you still think that money is the root of all evil, and you've never questioned why that programming is in your brain. And you don't know where it came from.
Oh, I know. I know where it came from.
Where do you think?
It came from being broke. Like when you broke, you're going to be disgruntled. When you're broke, you're going to be upset about that, and you're going to say things like "money is the root of all evil." People will say things to justify why they're not in the position that they want to be in. But man, I'm gonna be honest. I know this is gonna sound crazy. I genuinely, truly don't care about money. I care about being happy. I tell folks all the time, man, what is success? Success is you're doing whatever it is that you want to do and it makes you happy.
Yeah.
I know people right now that, are making tens of millions of dollars and they hate their jobs or they hate, what it is that they're doing. So is that actually success? I know people who are in South Carolina right now making $75,000 a year, $100,000 a year, but they got a roof over their head. They got food on the table. They can take a vacation every now and then when they want to, and they are genuinely happy.
Yep.
Success should be rooted in happiness, not in a monetary amount of, like this should just be rooted in, are you happy doing what it is that you're doing? I am happy doing what it is that I'm doing. I love what it is that I do. I love waking up in the morning to go do morning radio. This is literally what I used to pray for and what I used to dream about. When I was in, Charleston, South Carolina at Z93 Jams in 1999, I was praying for times like this. I wanted to be the super jock. You heard the people I named prior, the Tom Joyners, the Doug Banks, like those were the nationally syndicated radio personalities that a whole generation was listening to. I love being in the middle of one of my unanswered prayers.
Oof.
So there's no dollar amount that can make me any more happier than I already have been. I'm in the Radio Hall of Fame. I'm literally in the Radio Hall of Fame. I've been successful and happy, not because of any money, but because I chose to do something, and God allowed me the wherewithal and the skill to navigate my way to that point.
So one of the things that actually brought me back to you online is you had this post about the trades. And you were talking about
the trades?
Yeah, like plumbing, HVAC,
oh, yes,
and blue collar.
Got you.
And I was like, oh man, I totally agree. And you were basically saying, I think, in so many words, like blue collar jobs are just as important and powerful as white collar jobs.
More important.
There you go. So I want to talk about this with you. Like, what do you think about university versus trade school? What do you think about blue collar versus white collar? What would you say to a lot of my audience is a lot of blue collar people who are working their way up? Like, give me your take.
I think, number one, you should do whatever it is that you're called to do. But I do think that sometimes we love to push people to what we think is the new trendy thing, right? Right now it's AI. Prior to that, it was like, just social media and the internet in general, right? Like you got to learn how to code and all of these different things. Sure. I do agree with that. But man, the more things change, the more they stay the same. You still gonna need somebody to come through this building and install the plumbing. You still gonna need somebody to come through this building and install the HVAC. This building is going to need, electricians, right? Like you're going to need those people with those skill sets. So I think what the future should look like is people who decide they want to go to trade school and then using some of this new technology to make their jobs easier. It's the next generation of millionaires and, tens of millionaires, maybe even billionaires are going to come from people who know how to merge the two worlds. It's funny, I was having a conversation with one of my guys about this, and they were like, why you always be telling people to go to trade school? Trade school, those are the black jobs that Donald Trump was talking about. I'm like, those are the jobs that pay green. That's not a black job. Like, we are not in this room right now without anybody who understands how to do things with their hands. Like every single piece of equipment in this room, the lighting, everything, the bathroom I used earlier was because of a blue collar worker. We can't exist without them. They make the world go around. So yeah, I do encourage, a lot of people to go to trade school because everybody don't necessarily want to go to, a university and get a degree. And I don't have a problem with that either. Some people want to go to trade school and, do that for a couple of years and come home and start making money immediately. I got, friends and family members back home in South Carolina who've been, installing HVAC and, doing electrical work for 30 years. Ain't missed a meal, ain't missing no paycheck. They not complaining about, recessions, nothing. They are making their money. Lawn care services, like there is so many, blue collar jobs that people are making six figures on right now.
And you actually, from what I understand, you have an endowment or you help with education as well in South Carolina.
Yeah,
right?
I have my mother went to South Carolina State University. I have an honorary degree from South Carolina State University. And I started this endowment fund called the Ford Family Scholarship. And sued to, a woman I call another mother of mine. Her name is Nicole Brevard. She was somebody who was instrumental in, me even, starting that scholarship fund at South Carolina State University. And it is for people who want to major in communications, of course, because I'm a media personality, English, because my mother's an English teacher, or anything in the mental health profession. And I'm working on something right now that I think is going to really benefit people as far as trade school is concerned. Because I want to give people incentive, to go to trade school. And a lot of people can't afford trade school either. So it's like, let's let's help some of those brothers and sisters who want to, go to trade school as well. And I'm called right now to salute a young lady named Jordan. Jordan the Welder is her name on Instagram. The reason I'm saluting her is because she's like a Breakfast Club super listener. Like, she supports us in everything that we do. Like, I do the Black Effect Podcast Festival in Atlanta, every year. I think we're on our third or fourth year, and she always comes to it, but she's a welder. And I just find her fascinating because she lives a great life. She's married, right? And she's a welder, and she makes a great living. Like I said, she comes and supports us at everything that we do, and she's a welder. So it's like, we don't always have to, run to entertainment or athletics, to live a good life.
No, in fact, there's way more people that are plumbers making 100K than podcasters.
And we
which is
need
a
them.
Crazy thing to think about.
Yes, and we need them.
Order of magnitude.
Listen, we need them. Like, I hate, man, that's why I always say treat the CEO the same way you treat the custodian.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, in a lot of ways, the custodian is more important or just as important. Could you work in a building that was disgusting?
No, absolutely.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, you heard me. I was like, I heard a bit of noise back. Like,
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you knew that the bathrooms in this building was disgusting, you might not ever come here ever again.
Yeah.
So that's why people like the custodians and stuff are important, because they make our lives so much easier. So we got to constantly find ways to make their lives easier as well.
Oh, it's so true. Like, one of my favorite people, I opened the book with him, is this guy, Wayne Huizinga. I'm really bummed that he died before I got to meet him. But he was
God bless the dead.
Yeah, he was a garbage man. That's how he
Wow.
started. He was a dropout from college. He went to the military. He became a garbage man, driving a truck. Then he figured out, well, maybe I could buy one truck and I could start my little route. And that route turned into waste management, which became a multi-billion-dollar business, and then Blockbuster that he started and sold before it went sideways, and then owned a bunch of sports teams.
What?
Garbage dude. And so it's
Wow.
like, all around us, I think the problem, like the lie that we were told, is that you have to stay the garbage man when you start as the garbage man. It's like, yes, start cleaning the toilets. That's sick. But then how much easier is it to climb the ladder from the guy who did the cleaning to the next rung, to the next rung, to the next
That's
rung,
right.
if you're competent, and then
That's right.
own the motherfucker.
That's right.
I'm on board.
And by the way, even if you don't want to do that, that's cool too.
Yeah, that's true.
There's parking attendants that I look forward to seeing every day. Cause when I see them, they screaming my name. I scream their name.
yeah.
Like, some of them might be singing songs. Like, they might be talking to me about stuff that we was talking about on the air. Those are the people I like to talk to. What do we know? We've been doing.
I do a lot of this.
Yeah, like, I like talking to working class people, because I definitely, I still consider myself a working class person. I just do a different line of work. But I used to work at Taco Bell. I did telemarketing. I worked at a clothing store. Me and my now wife used to work at a clothing store in the mall when we was, teenagers. I did all of those things, but you really get to see what's going on in the world when you have conversations with working class people. They're the ones that can help you keep your boots on the ground.
Let's say we got one of them listening right now.
Mm-hmm.
And they get to listen to you, and they've come to the end of this podcast, and you get to send them off. Like, what are you saying to the person who's on their climb, figuring it out? What would be the advice you would give them today? The thought that you would leave them with?
The first thing I would say to them is thank you. I am grateful that you decided to listen to the Codie Sanchez podcast with Charlamagne the God. Thank you. And thank you for, whatever it is that you're doing every day that makes our lives, better. And yeah, I would tell them, and the reason I'm saying thank you is because I would tell them, make sure that they have a attitude of gratitude as well. Because, man, when you wake up every day and you are genuinely grateful for where you are, like you say, God, thank you, man. God, I'm so thankful and grateful to be, number one, just alive, but then number two, to be able to do what it is that I'm currently doing. You will constantly get blessed with more. I think that is what truly makes an individual happy, right? When you have true gratitude for where you are in life, at the moment. Like, you can't wake up every day and hate what it is that you do. If you wake up every day and hate what it is that you do, please change what it is that you do. like you have to. Like, you cannot wake up every day and hate what it is that you do, because you're gonna project that negative energy onto everybody. Like, don't be the the garbage man with an attitude, right? Don't be the person working at the fast food restaurant with the attitude. And same goes for us. Like if I wake up every morning with a negative attitude, I'm going to get on that radio and I'm going to project that onto the people. And trust me, I've been that before. I've been in that space where I've been that before. And God had to remind me quick, I can take this away from you. You do know that, right? I could take this away from you in 2 seconds. So you asked for this. You prayed for this. This is what you wanted. This is what you worked hard towards. How dare you come up here every morning and project what you got going on, negatively to the people. That's one of the reasons I started going to therapy. And when I started going to therapy back in 2016, I would literally come on the radio and tell everybody that I'm going to therapy every Friday at 3:00. I started talking to the people about what it was I was dealing with, because I owed that to them. They can't turn on the radio and hear me going off on somebody or hear me maybe badgering somebody in an interview. I'm like, damn, why is this person doing? Why is he coming like that? It might be entertaining to some. Some might be like, what is up with this dude? I started to go do the work on myself because I wasn't happy with what was going on with me internally. And so me coming on the radio and expressing that, to other people and tell people I'm going to therapy and trying to get a handle on my anxiety and bouts of depression and things like that, that became a whole movement of its own. And that just started with me being honest with my listeners and not wanting to take for granted the blessing that God had gave me, because I know he could take it away from me in a heartbeat. And that was 2016. So that was 6 years in the Breakfast Club. We still here 9 years later. I continue to grow. I continue to evolve. So clearly, I did something right.
Last thing for you, like, what should people be following you on this year? I know you're working on a million things, but like, where should they be? Where are you like, I'm fucking excited. Tune into this, people.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Well, the Breakfast Club is coming to Netflix this year. Yeah. So,
That's
you'll
sick. So open up your TV.
Open up your TV. Yeah, like right now, if you can go to Netflix right now, type in Breakfast Club, and you'll see it pop up. I think they say the video podcast start on January 26th. So you can set your reminders for that. Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people are having conversations about, Netflix, and they're saying Netflix is trying to compete with YouTube. I don't think Netflix is necessarily trying to compete with YouTube. I just think Netflix is doing what all of these, streaming platforms are doing. Let's bring on content that people want to watch, and let's just see if we can, get as many eyeballs over here and have them, spending their time and attention, with us. So I just think, it's dope for the podcasting game, right? To see where podcasting has grown and where it's evolved to where, a premium, network like Netflix, wants to have us on. And man, I just hope to do more of that. Like, I want to like sitting here talking to you, you have a hit podcast, but what else does Codie Sanchez want to do? Codie Sanchez might have a scripted show in mind based off her life or something. Codie Sanchez might want to do documentaries. Those are the things that I'm thinking about with all of these streaming platforms. Netflix has gotten the game in a real way. I think Apple should follow suit. I think Peacock should follow suit. I think Amazon should follow suit and just tap in with us, right? These new media personalities who, have a lot of different content and IP that we can bring to the table. So that's one thing, Breakfast Club on Netflix. I also have a book imprint called Black Privilege Publishing, and 2026 is going to be a huge year for us because we have Arsenio Hall's memoir.
Oh, I fucking love him.
Yeah, which comes out in April. He's been one of my entertainment inspirations forever. I have 4 huge entertainment inspirations. It's Jay-Z, Clarence Avant, a radio personality named Petey Green, God bless the dead, and Arsenio Hall. And so it's like a privilege to be publishing his memoir. So that comes out in March, I believe, but you can pre-order his book now. My man 2 Chainz, who you should actually have on this podcast because his business mind, he is, a very, very astute, businessman. Like one of my, business ventures, which is the Crystal franchises that me and my wife have in South Carolina. I got into him because of 2 Chainz. He has
a Crystal franchise.
Crystal is a burger spot.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, so they serve like little sliders. Like, so they're like the down south White Castle. Oh, and so, he has a role at Crystal. And my man Lil Duval, I saw him one day because Duval does this thing in his community called Duval Day. And I saw him with all these crystal burgers. And I'm like, damn, I ain't see crystal in a minute. Where you get crystal from? And he was like, yo, 2 Chainz is, working with them now. So I reached out to Chainz and, my guy Technique, that's 2 Chainz partner. And they plugged me right in with my man, Jonathan Childs, who owns the Crystal franchises. So me and my wife ended up doing 6 of them. Salute to my guy Billy as well. And so we got 2 Chainz book coming out. The Voice in My Head is God. That comes out in April. My co-host Jess Hilarious, on the Breakfast Club, she has a book coming out called Tell Death Do We Parent. It's a co-parenting book. That comes out this year as well. And we have some other ones that we haven't announced yet, so I can't announce them. But those 3 we've already announced, so you can go pre-order those wherever you buy.
Let's do it.
Books now.
Pre-orders are so important. It's always like, I don't think people realize, like, if you like one, if you like Arsenio, if they like you, if they like Jess, like the best thing, it's such a gift to do a pre-order because all the publishing nonsense you got to get through. So hopefully you guys go buy some of those books.
Pre-orders are important, but I think that they're I'm not going to say they're a tad bit overrated. I think the publishing company puts a little too much emphasis on them.
Yeah.
Because people buy in the moment. People want to buy like
what
right
about
now.
to hit New York Times? Like the shenanigans I had to go through to try to, I was like, don't buy now. Wait 3 seconds. Only from this spot. It's fucking crazy town.
Yeah.
So my second book, I'm not doing any of that.
I care about selling books more than I care about the list. Because the list is all politics, you know that.
I can't believe they let me on there. I thought for sure, Main Street Millionaire title about boring businesses making money, like
that's what people
want. Yeah, but they don't. I don't think.
I'll drive myself crazy worrying about stuff like that. Seriously, because you just don't. I don't know how it works. Like it's all politics with all of those lists. So I just want people to go out there and buy the books, learn something from the books. Most importantly, because all of those different books serve different purposes. Arsenio Hall's memoir is just for anybody who grew up on Arsenio and wants to see the ins and outs of Hollywood in the 90s and why he made the decisions that he made, because what he was doing was groundbreaking and revolutionary back then. So if you ever woof, 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 you're going to love that book. 2 Chainz is literally The Voice in My Head is God. So it's like a spiritual book that shows you, why he made the moves that he made, from child to, now as an adult. And, Jess' book is about co-parenting. It's literally about how her and her, her first baby's father, have had a healthy co-parenting relationship. So we got a lot of different books for a lot of different people.
Oh, I can't wait to read them.
Absolutely.
Charlamagne the God, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Cody.
It's amazing.
Absolutely.
We are sitting on a generational wealth creation event. If you're here, this means you're a builder. As we're going through these next 3 days, I want you to know that the American dream starts with you guys. Buy our little Main Street revolution.
And then I just want to give you guys permission to take a leap of faith.
If I knew then what I know now, I would probably do bigger deals.
It's given us an extra layer of security that we never would have had.
I am so excited to introduce you to some ordinary people doing extraordinary things.
We have to really take the time to make a meaningful connection. It's the fact that there is a lack of connection and the person just wants to be seen, heard, and understood.
Thanks for taking the question.
Are there extra things that need to be done when trying to pay off bad debt?
Great question.
I buy businesses so simple, even your grandmother understands them. That's the game.
It's you and me versus the problem. We're going to try to solve this together.
I know how to build trust in a very advanced way.
How does buying a business fit into the vision for your life?
Today, my goal is to teach you some fundamental skills that you can use to accelerate your business.
If you make a promise in the mirror, know that your word is freaking iron to you.
These people on Wall Street, they want to keep the normal people out of the game.
Main Street millionaires are all around this world, and it starts with each and every one of you.
What are you waiting for? Your path to ownership starts now. Get your ticket to join us on Main Street. Join us today.